Let's go now to Tohid Asadi, who joins us live from Tehran. Tohid, those words coming as a Pakistani delegation arrives in Tehran. Is this a sign then that despite all the tough talk from Washington, there are renewed efforts at diplomacy?
Well, we know that there is a lot of diplomatic engagement underway, as we heard from the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ismail Baghai, during his press conference today, that the Pakistani delegation is in Tehran. They are going to have meeting with the Iranian high-ranking officials. And obviously, the spokesperson says the visit is taking place in the context of bilateral relations. But it goes without saying that seeing the mediation and the role by the Islamabad when it comes to any rapprochement between Washington and Tehran, that visit becomes critically important. And again, we have another visit taking place tomorrow, and that is the Omani foreign minister paying a visit to Iran, and then discussions are going to be revolving around bilateral issues, most important of which we know that the two sides are going to be delving into important aspect of the Strait of Hormuz regarding the arrangement over the reopening of which they have been holding discussions over the past few weeks. Iranians are talking about good progress regarding those talks, but no deal reached at the end of the day, which we know that it's going to put a certain amount of impact on the prospect of talks between Tehran and Washington. And the spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs says the prospect is affected by this cloud of mistrust, which comes from historical background when it comes to JCPOA, when it comes to the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding, regarding which a spokesperson for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Iran says it was not actually practiced effectively because of the lack of commitment from the American side. And also regarding the termination of the war, he said that Iran is not going to allow the aggressor party to determine the terms of termination of the war. These are the lines that we are hearing from the Iranian side, while we know that the prospect of any negotiated settlement is also engulfed by the very complex nature of the situation, in which not only the Strait of Hormuz, the naval blockade, there are relatively longer list of points of contentions which are basically putting impact on the prospect of the talks.
Well, while the US is threatening to sever Iran's economic lifelines, Iranians from all walks of life are struggling under the weight of rising inflation and war pressure. Since 1979, the US has imposed sanctions on Iran in response to the seizure of its embassy and its staff, as well as Tehran's support for armed groups and its pursuit of a nuclear program. Before this war, inflation stood at more than 42%, while food inflation topped 70%. Nearly half the Iranian population is estimated to be living in poverty. And since last year, people's purchasing power has severely eroded. Tohid, figures out this morning say that Iran's currency has reached a record low. What effect is that economic pressure having on Iranians today? For example, when they go and do a grocery shop?
Well, we know that they have been living in this situation marked by deteriorated economic circumstances, high inflation, increasing prices, and as you mentioned, the devaluation of the local currency rial. And over the past 2-3 days, we are witnessing new records when it comes to the exchange rate for the foreign currency, which is by itself an indicative of how the Iranian economy is performing. Also, when it comes to prices, we know that last month the point-to-point inflation in the country raised to 87%. When it comes to food and beverage, it was 130. And to give you a picture, we know that annual inflation when it comes to some daily commodities, such as, for instance, say solid vegetable oil, it was 399. When it comes to eggs, when it comes to chicken, it's around 200% the annual increase rate for the prices, and this is putting a huge amount of impact on the daily expenses for people who are also dealing with an uncertain situation. as they see the country on the edge of another round of confrontation, and the fluctuating hopes pertaining to the potentiality of diplomatic engagement, whether or not it could pave the way for a better livelihood, is something that is a big question for many people living here. And also, we know that the economic situation, the deteriorated circumstances people are facing, is not just when it comes to food. It goes on much beyond that when it comes to other daily expenditures.
Tohid Asadi joining us live from Tehran. Thank you very much.